Hello and welcome to YNWA Transfer News, your ultimate source for all Liverpool FC transfer news. Our first news is this.
How Arne Slot and Jurgen Klopp's first 8 Liverpool signings compare as pattern emerges. Jurgen Klopp and Arne Slot's beginnings at Liverpool could hardly have been more contrasting. When Klopp arrived in 2015, he faced the challenge of restoring the Reds to their previous heights following years of domestic underpark, encouraging fans to shift from doubters to believers. Klopp orchestrated the revival of a club accustomed to falling short into one, consistently competing for silverware both domestically and across Europe. Liverpool's renaissance under Klopp wasn't instantaneous, with the former manager needing to operate cleverly in the transfer market from the outset. Slot's situation has been markedly different, receiving the biggest transfer budget in the club's history last summer, continuing the foundations laid by his predecessor during 9 years on Merseyside. The Dutchman guided Liverpool to Premier League glory last season, joining an exclusive group as only the 5th manager in the competition's history to claim the title in their maiden season, given the responsibility to strengthen the squad further with ambitions of establishing a dynasty. Slot's second transfer window at Liverpool bore little resemblance to his first. His only additions last year were Federico Chiesa and Georgiou Mamardashvili, with the goalkeeper staying on loan at Valencia for the remainder of the campaign. The 47-year-old revamped his fullback options with the signings of Jeremy Frimpong and Milos Kerkez, costing the club a hefty £69 million. The pair's arrival was just the beginning of Slot's spending spree, which saw him break the club record with the acquisition of Florian Wirtz for a staggering £116 million, followed by the British record fee of £125 million splashed on Alexander Isak. The Dutchman also forked out £79 million on Hugo Ekitike to bolster his attacking options. In contrast, during Klopp's reign, the closest Liverpool came to such extravagant spending was the £75 million shelled out for Virgil van Dijk. This purchase, along with the £67 million spent on Alisson, only occurred after Philippe Coutinho was sold to Barcelona for a whopping £142 million. Klopp's initial 8 signings as manager were far more modest, including 3 free transfers: Joel Matip, Alexander Manninger, and Steven Cocker, with the latter being a loan deal. During the first 18 months of Klopp's tenure, the purse strings were tightly controlled, but exceptions were made for the arrivals of Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah, unlike Wirtz and Isak, who arrived at Liverpool as world-class players. Mane and Salah were yet to reach that status but did so under Klopp's guidance, significantly increasing their value in the process. Klopp's spending power grew during his final years at Anfield thanks to on-field achievements and the club's record-breaking financial performance. Nevertheless, it paled in comparison to the staggering £450 million Slot splashed out last summer, with Klopp acknowledging such lavish expenditure would have been impossible during his tenure. Speaking on the Diary of a CEO podcast, he said, "I had no clue that this is possible. Nobody ever told me that it's possible, that we can spend like that. My last year at Liverpool, we obviously had the Adidas deal, the new stadium, all these kind of things. They earn more money, but never, ever I could have asked for that amount of money, but that's not a problem. In that time it was not there, no problem at all, despite Slot's extravagant summer outlay." The Liverpool manager finds himself in troubled waters, presiding over 9 defeats in their previous 12 matches. Last weekend's humiliating 3-0 home loss to Nottingham Forest was compounded by another dismal performance at Anfield, with PSV inflicting a crushing 4-1 Champions League defeat. December, crucial in deciding Arne Slot's Liverpool future. December is going to be a crucial month for Liverpool head coach Arne Slot as he fights to prove his worth at Anfield. It has been an awful couple of months for the Reds since losing 2-1 to Crystal Palace in September. Before that defeat, they were looking like they could challenge for the Premier League title again. Now, the picture looks completely different. With Liverpool in 13th as of Sunday morning, they have lost 9 of their last 12 games in all competitions, with the run including defeats to Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, Brentford and Nottingham Forest. And the pressure is now ramping up on Slot after consecutive 3-goal defeats at Anfield, with the club spending a record £146 million in the summer transfer window, which included buying Alexander Isak for £125 million. It's no shock to see the pressure mounting from those in the media, as well as opposition fans and even Liverpool Supporters. December will be pivotal for Slot and Liverpool. It doesn't get any easier for the Reds as the fixtures come thick and fast in December and over the Christmas period. They have 6 more games before Christmas Day, including trips to Spurs and Inter. They can't splash the cash every year, and with the amount they spent in the summer, they cannot afford to miss out on Champions League football next season. Only on 4 occasions has a team been outside of the top 4 at Christmas and won the league. So if Liverpool don't manage to get themselves back in a Champions League spot by then, retaining the title looks very unlikely. They were one of the favorites to win the 2025-26 Champions League at the start of the season, but it's Arsenal who now head the betting at 5/1. As stated by mybettingsites.co.uk, the Reds are 20/1 to lift the trophy and are also behind the likes of Bayern Munich and PSG, with Slot's team also out of the Carabao Cup after a 3-0 defeat to Crystal Palace. It already feels like a trophyless season is on the cards. Is the clock ticking for Slot at Liverpool? Even though many of his players are struggling to perform to the levels they were at last year, there can be no excuses for the head coach, who has more than enough firepower to get the Reds playing better. There are rumors of the club wanting to sign more players in January as well, with Bournemouth's Antoine Semenyo heavily linked. However, if Slot can't prove that he can get a tune out of current new signings like Isak, then FSG may have to start looking for a replacement. They need someone who can get the squad performing. And with Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah coming towards the end of their careers, Liverpool's next manager must be able to get the best out of a new-look squad. No LFC fan, player or owner will want Slot to be sacked, but if this horrific run of form continues, there may be no other option. Liverpool boss is the sole reason I left the club. He made my life a misery. Benayoun once admitted Rafa Benitez was the reason behind his Liverpool departure. The former Israel international joined the Reds in the summer of 2007 while Benitez was at the helm at Anfield. He reportedly went back on a deal to remain at West Ham to push through the transfer. Arriving alongside the likes of Fernando Torres and Ryan Babel, Benayoun swiftly made his mark by netting 11 goals during his debut campaign for Liverpool. Though 21 of his appearances that term came off the bench, yet his time on Merseyside ended on a sour note after just 3 seasons with the club. The 45-year-old, who hung up his boots in 2019, attributes this to Benitez's notoriously cold personality and managerial style. Benayoun moved to rivals Chelsea in 2010, giving an interview that same summer where he criticized Benitez and claimed the manager never showed him the respect he believed he warranted. Benitez had actually left the club 1 month before Benayoun's own exit, but the Spaniards' alleged treatment of him meant he had already decided to quit Anfield. Benayoun said, "Everyone asks me why I left Liverpool. There is only one reason, Rafa Benitez. If I played well, I never felt he gave me credit. When I scored, I still expected to be out of the team the next game. On 2 occasions early last season, against Fulham and Lyon, the fans booed when I was subbed. They thought I was playing well, but Benitez told me he was surprised the fans booed because I was not good enough." He then delivered a damning assessment of Benitez, claiming the Spanish boss deliberately tried to shatter his confidence. Benayoun added, "He tried to destroy my confidence. You can't treat a player like this and expect him to be happy." Benayoun revealed he had been miserable but remained silent out of loyalty to the club. He added that the squad and staff at Anfield were aware of how he felt. He continued, "I don't want to speak on behalf of other players at Liverpool, but people know what happened to Albert Rira and Xabi Alonso. It was the same for me. Benitez tried to break me like he broke Rira." The winger described how, prior to the last match in his final season, Benitez approached him during training and said, "You will not be in the squad for this game. Thank you for your 3 years of service. Now you can call your agent to do a deal with another club." That's when Chelsea made an offer, said Benayoun. And the deal was done before Benitez left. Benayoun ended his Anfield career with 29 goals across 134 matches in an exciting yet ultimately frustrating period in the Reds' history, where they failed to win a trophy. His move to Stamford Bridge was a failure and loan moves to Arsenal and West Ham followed before his permanent transfer to Queen's Park Rangers midway through the 2013-14 season. 2 of Benayoun's former clubs, West Ham and Liverpool, are set to meet in the Premier League on Sunday afternoon. The Reds have been struggling both domestically and in Europe, slipping down to 12th place in the league ahead of their trip to East London 10 players could miss West Ham versus Liverpool as Arne Slot faces big decisions. Liverpool is hoping to see the return of several key players from injury as it prepares to take on West Ham United in the Premier League this weekend. The Reds will be making their way to the London Stadium on Sunday, aiming to put an end to a disappointing run of form. It's been a bleak season for Arne Slot, with Liverpool currently enduring its worst spell in over 70 years, having suffered defeat in 9 of its last 12 matches across all competitions. Consequently, the club finds itself languishing in 13th place in the Premier League standings, with its chances of defending the title it secured in May long having dwindled. To add insult to injury, Liverpool has had to contend with injuries to several key players for much of the season, and it appears this trend will continue into Sunday. As many as 10 players across both sides could be absent. Several players are uncertain for this weekend's match. Hugo Ekitike managed 61 minutes against PSV Eindhoven in Liverpool's midweek Champions League encounter, before being substituted due to a back injury. The Frenchman has outshone marquee signing Alexander Isak this season, and his absence could be keenly felt if he is unavailable for the West Ham game. However, if Slot's remarks following the PSV match are anything to go by, then he may well be fit to participate. Speaking on Thursday, the head coach said, "They don't expect that it has to be a big issue, but the games come fast, so let's see for the weekend. But it shouldn't have to be a big issue." Meanwhile, Alisson Becker made his return from a hamstring problem last weekend and then missed the PSV match through illness. He, however, is expected to be fine here. Florian Wirtz sustained an injury while representing Germany on international duty earlier this month, though his recovery is thought to be close to completion, and the attacking midfielder could feature. Nevertheless, several other members of Slot's squad have been completely ruled out. Jeremy Frimpong suffered a thigh injury in October during Liverpool's 5-1 demolition of Eintracht Frankfurt, and isn't anticipated to return until mid-December. Conor Bradley hasn't appeared for his club since picking up a problem during the November international break with Northern Ireland. He is also expected to remain unavailable until next month. Giovanni Leoni will miss the entire campaign following an ACL injury sustained against Southampton in September. Discussing the centre-back in September, Slot said, "He is not in a good place because he tore his ACL, which means he will be out around a year. Being so young and coming to a new country and playing so well in your first game, it's very hard to take the positives. But you try to look at that, and that is that he is still so young, and he has so many years still to go after he recovers." Liverpool isn't the only club dealing with absences this weekend, as Nuno Espirito Santo is also without several players from his West Ham squad. Oliver Scarles had surgery on a shoulder problem that will sideline him until late December, while Lucas Fabianski's return remains uncertain following a reported back complaint. Crescencio Somerville and Konstantinos Mavropanos are doubtful for the fixture, with Nuno confirming during Friday's pre-match press conference that both would undergo late fitness assessments before the game. "That's my advice," Emil Heskey tells Alexander Isak what he must do to succeed at Liverpool. Almost 3 months on from his British record £125 million transfer to Liverpool, Alexander Isak is still in search of his first Premier League goal for the Reds. The Swedish striker dominated headlines over the summer as he effectively went on strike to force a move from Newcastle, eventually getting his wish on deadline day, but he hasn't been able to make an immediate impact at Anfield. He arrived on Merseyside lacking match fitness after sacrificing preseason, while a groin injury sidelined him for a few matches prior to the November international window, during which he made a tentative return to action. Heskey has words of advice for Isak. A quarter of a century before Isak joined Liverpool, Emil Heskey became the Reds' then record signing for £11 million, and he's now dispensed some advice to our current number 9 as the latter seeks to justify his price tag. Regarding the 26-year-old, the former LFC and England striker told the Mirror, "Work harder, that's my advice. Get yourself up to speed. The intensity they play at now, that might have to change. He's finding it difficult right now. I didn't feel the pressure. I was playing in a team with 2 up front, alongside one of the best of his generation in Michael Owen. I knew what I was brought in for, to be more creative than full-on scoring. Now it's different, because it's 1 up front, and the main focus is goals." Isak has yet to take flight at Liverpool. Heskey makes a valid point in terms of how, broadly speaking across English football, playing as a center forward has changed from being part of a partnership in the early 2000s to operating as a lone striker in the current era. That said, the hard work of which Liverpool's former No. 8 speaks should be the bare minimum of any player representing the club, and it certainly ought to be a given for a forward of Isak's undoubted ability. The Swede has had a slow start to life at Anfield, with only one goal in his first 10 games for the Reds, and his performance in the 0-3 defeat to Nottingham Forest last weekend was derided by Sky Sports reporter Laura Hunter as completely anonymous. Isak also failed to make much impact off the bench in the midweek humbling by PSV Eindhoven, and in 97 minutes on the pitch across those two games, he touched the ball only 23 times and managed a mere one shot on target opening parenthesis FB ref closing parenthesis. The very least to be expected of any Liverpool player is to give everything for the shirt, and that's what we need to see from the £125 million man, who hasn't been helped by his fitness problems but needs to start impacting games soon. He's too good a player to simply crash and burn at Anfield. Hopefully it won't be long before we see the same Isak, who scored freely throughout his 3 years at Newcastle.
Thank you for watching. Like and comment, subscribe.